recap over the setup. Later in this video, I'm going to be ripping it all back apart. Okay, back in the garage again. Alright, how's it going, everybody? Back in the garage again after yet another, don't know how long, it's been a few months, kind of hiatus, haven't been posting anything, but, you know, life gets in the way. This video is kind of gonna be, you know, another recap of what's been going on off camera, and gonna bring everybody up to date with where the Sentra is at. I know the last I left off with the Sentra was I'd kind of just gotten the turbo mounted in the car with the new manifold, got the new wastegate on there, and I think I had the dump pipe welded. So there's been a lot that's happened since then. Yeah, here is basically what the car is looking like. You can see I have the hood on there. Wastegate is looking good. I have the old hole for the exhaust blocked off, and I have the new hole for the exhaust with the trim plate on it. Guess I'll go ahead and pop the hood now. Alright, so as you can see, the car's done, basically. I have not gotten it dyno tuned yet, but I have put in a few hundred miles on the car on this setup now. It took me a bunch of tries to kind of get the tune even to where it was cruisable. I finally was able to get it dialed in, and yeah, so I guess let's just go ahead and go over the setup here. You guys have seen the manifold and the wastegate in that setup. I think I had the fuel rail in there in the last video. I have my injectors in there now. These are Siemens Deka 630cc. I actually I have a set over here in my toolbox. What I originally bought for the car was fuel injector connection. This is their signature series. They're also Siemens Deka, but they're basically just really closely flow matched together. Those were 875cc. I was having a hard time getting the car running decent on those. Yeah, I wound up buying 2 sets of injectors for this car. But so I have Siemens Deka 630cc injectors in here. Same fuel pressure regulators. Yeah, last year the Air Motive, I believe it's the A1000. You can see I have an AEM boost solenoid in here, and that is because I now have AEM True Boost boost gauge / controller in the car. I have the car on, it'll spike like 13 pounds and settles around like 11.9. So boost controller set up in the car, it's working great. Same wideband setup, oil pressure gauge setup as last year. I have my intake manifold modified this year. I do not have any of the idle air control stuff on the top like it normally does, and I have the one hole that goes right into the intake manifold plugged up, welded off. Last year I was running an N60 MAF. I have upgraded to the N62. Still running the MAF setup. I was talking in my previous video about how I was planning to switch over to a MAP setup on Nismotronic versus the Nistune. Not really in the cards for this year, so I'm just going to drive it the rest of the season on the MAF setup. It's driving pretty good thus far, so just going to keep cruising around with it like that. Like I said, the setup has been running great thus far. A few other things I have changed that I don't know how well you'll be able to see because it's going to be dark in here. I changed up my center console setup, I used to have like a big panel covering this whole top area here with gauges and all the switches and stuff like that. I've switched back to more of a stock OEM style look with just the switches here, and I have the pillar gauge cluster thing here. I also, you won't really be able to tell just from right here, but I have a black carpet in this car now. A much nicer steering wheel setup for this year. It's a NRG wheel, NRG quick release, and it's actually a D&D steering hub. Another thing I changed for this season is I have the battery mounted in the trunk properly. Last year I just had it not strapped down at all, just behind my seat, basically using, or behind the passenger seat rather, basically using the seat to wedge the battery in between the chassis and the seat so that it wouldn't really move around. Kind of sketchy. This year I actually have it's a battery cutoff coming through the back of the vehicle, and then I have the battery mounted in the trunk right here. I will throw a picture of that up from when that was going on, when I was putting the battery back there. That is about it with what is going on the Sentra. Basically the only thing left to do now is I'll do a little startup here for you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and put in all of the clips that I've had from the past few days, me driving around, getting this thing dialed in. I'm gonna throw in some older clips of when like the first startup on this thing. that I kind of went over everything that's new on the car that kind of nobody's seen, let's kind of go over why I got to tear everything back apart. So like I said, I got a few hundred miles on this setup. Finally started to make some progress on the tune. And last time I went to make the video for this, I was going to end it with a clip of me leaving the garage and driving around, and pulled it outside, noticed some things were weird. My alternator had died. So, took me like a week or two to get the money for alternator. They're kind of expensive, $100. Actually, funny story, I ended up getting it for free because I didn't realize it was still under warranty. So I could have gotten it that day had I realized it was still under warranty. But that's besides the fact. Finally fixed the alternator, go for another drive, and on the way home from getting my core charged and figuring out that I got the alternator for free, I noticed that my oil pressure was like 10 psi while cruising at like 60 miles per hour on the highway, which is very not good. So I limped the car home, started the next day on a cold start, warmed the car up, drove it around the block a few times, and same thing. Cruising around, oil PSI dropped to like 10 PSI or less. So I gotta tear this thing apart and see what's happening. I did a compression test, all 4 cylinders on a completely cold engine, not like I started it for like 2 seconds, and then I ran the fuel out of the cylinders, so there wasn't still like a bunch of fuel in the cylinders. I started it, shut the fuel pump off, and then ran it till it died. So, you know, maybe 30 seconds the car was running. All 4 cylinders tested at like 155 to 160 PSI. Kind of on the low side, but for a fairly cold engine, I was happy with that. And the main thing you want to see is the difference between cylinder to cylinder, and the difference was like 2 psi between cylinders, which is pretty good. So the compression is fine within the cylinders. So my only guess is oil pump. So I'm gonna pull the engine back out, buy a nice OEM Nissan oil pump, and slap it in. One other thing it could be, I guess, is if the oil strainer is getting clogged, but kind of just with what I'm thinking with how it's acting, when the oil gets thin, the tolerances, the clearances on the oil pump are too much, and the oil is able to just kind of slip on through it rather than actually get pumped up by the oil pump. So that's kind of my thinking on that. So I'm gonna go ahead, throw in a bunch of videos of me ripping this thing while it did run the past few weeks, and then we're gonna get started on diving into this thing. So basically next what I need to do is go ahead, jack up the car, put on some jack stands or something. I need to pull the axles out, get the diff fluid drained out of the transmission, and then pull the shift linkage off, get one more piece, got 2 little wires here on the alternator I gotta pull off, hook up the engine hoist, do the motor mounts, and it's ready to pull. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the car jacked up now, put it on some jack stands, pull the wheels off, and get the axles out. Back in the garage, trying this again for the millionth time. Gonna pick up where I left off the other day, and the day before that, and then the time before that, and the time before that. Okay, that's not exactly how I wanted that to go. Forgot about our return line. Again, I have no clue what day it is. Yeah. Engine is on the stand. It's basically ready for me to go ahead and dive into it. Start pulling the oil pump off. I have to drain the oil, pull the lower oil pan off. I'll inspect the pickup tube at that point while I'm there. Then pull the pickup tube off, pull the baffle off, and take off the upper oil pan. Hopefully this was a little bit entertaining. I know there's going to be a few clips at least of this thing running and driving. So yeah, stay tuned. Sorry I'm a horrible YouTuber, but I am going to keep making videos. They're just not going to be very consistent. So if you want to go ahead and subscribe to see more, that would be cool. And I'll see you guys next time.